Pocock.
Thank you, Madam Acting Deputy President. I'd like to start by acknowledging the strongly divided and deeply held views in this chamber on this bill. I've engaged with all sides in consideration of this legislation. I thank Senators Ruston and Rice and other senators for their time during committee hearings, hearing tragic stories from people whose lives are being affected. I'd also like to thank Minister Rishworth for genuinely listening and taking on board ideas to deliver better outcomes for the communities affected by this legislation. I'd also like to thank Senator Reynolds for the encouragement to travel to committee hearing to hear from myself. I thoroughly enjoyed this experience, my first committee hearing as a senator for the ACT. I attended the committee hearing in Darwin and read the submissions to the Senate inquiry and have since then met with a range of other stakeholders. I've tried to look at the available evidence and listen to the stories and evidence from affected communities. I've heard the arguments for and against. And what is clear to me from all of this is that compulsory income management has to end. What's also apparent is that there are individuals who want a voluntary form of income management that utilises the technology of the CDC card. There are communities who want to be able to decide for themselves who they put on income management through their own self-determined processes. Throughout the course of the last few months, I've worked with the government on this bill and commend them for making amendments based on some of these conversations and I'm sure many others. The main concerns I raised were protecting the Family Responsibilities Commission and the framework in place in Cape York, ensuring the CDC is still available to them. Clearly, this is something that they want. They rate it as much more functional than the basics card, and we have to ensure that they can continue with the work that they're doing up there. We need to ensure that people on the CDC and the NT do not have to go back onto the basics card, which is clearly an inferior technology. We need to ensure that people who would like to keep income management on a voluntary basis have the ability to do so. To be clear, we need to end all compulsory income management, and this bill does not do that. It simply allows the government to take people off the CDC. We need to continue to push the government to ensure that they prioritise ending all forms of compulsory income management. While I'd like to have a timeline from the government regarding their ending of all income management, with these changes and the funding for support services outlined over the weekend, this is clearly a first step. The research and majority of the evidence given during the Senate committee hearings overwhelmingly shows the CDC is not addressing the problems it was designed to address. I would like to reiterate that with the changes negotiated with the government, anyone who still wants to utilise income management can still access it on a voluntary basis. This is something we heard consistently during the committee hearing process. I welcome the government's commitment to support services and to co-designing them with communities. A more holistic approach is clearly needed. A focus on co-design and ensuring that communities are empowered to make decisions for themselves to solve their own problems. To partner with communities, work alongside them, rather than dictate from Canberra what they need. It seems to me that on this issue, a voice to Parliament would be something that would provide consultation and advice on an issue that affects, overwhelmingly, disproportionately affects First Nations people. And the referendum to enshrine a voice in our Constitution is something I look forward to working with my colleagues in this place and Australians to take this step forward for our great country and to begin to write a new chapter together. This bill is far from perfect, but is clearly a first step and is needed, and any significant delay in its passage will subject people to further distress. So I'll be supporting this bill.